Matthew Syme, Chief Operating Officer of the National Football Foundation. I'm a member. Paul's a member. Craig's a member. And I vote for the Hall of Fame and all that. I know that's kind of being done right now. What's it like to be a part of that organization?
It's a real honor, because the College Football Hall of Fame, it might be one of the toughest halls to get into. If you think about in the history of the game going back to 1869, we guesstimate a little over 6 million have played college football, and at the end of the day, 0.07% are inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. It's hard to get into, as it should. It's a real honor, and really enjoy working on it amongst our other programs.
Is it too hard to get into? Has there ever been the thought? I mean, you want a Hall of Fame to be a Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Has there been a thought about ever expanding a little bit more, or is it you kind of like it the way it is?
Well, we've added more to the yearly Hall of Fame class.
Mm-hmm.
So this year we're going to have 22 players and coaches. And probably early on in my career at the foundation, the total class was around 14. So we've added more, but you have to understand that you could have 50 a year, and you will never catch up.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have definite criteria that people understand and can get behind, and we feel like we do that.
If people have not been to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, it is one of the coolest. I'm not just talking about like sports museums. It's a cool museum in general.
Right.
It's great. For people who haven't been there, they got to go, right? And that's good. You're a college football fan. You got to put it on your list.
Well, absolutely. It needs to be a mecca that you go see if you are a college football fan. And, the first thing you do when you walk in, you see a giant helmet wall.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the 773 colleges and universities that have a football program are reflected when you walk in. And in fact, you could check in, and the helmet of your favorite school or alma mater will light up. And that's kind of your entrance into the hall. And then, the third floor is where we recognize the Hall of Famers, and they have a glass blade and the highlight reel. But it is a special place. It's really a great place to go.
Hey, the tag thing, when you get in and you can walk through the room, I'm a Florida State grad, and it walks through and it'll be like, Bobby Bowden did this, or Peter, all these guys, and it just blows your mind how it just because I'm in the room, it's going to tell me now about the people I'm looking for anyway.
Yeah, it's really cool. You walk by, like you said, the Florida State fight song will come up in the fight song area. But, we spend a lot, that was about a year and a half of my life working on that, getting it moved from South Bend. And so anything in there content-wise, I played a part in deciding what was going to go in there. And we had to make sure that it was balanced. When the Hall of Fame was in South Bend, I heard a lot of people, it's very Notre Dame heavy, very Big Ten heavy. And we understood that, and part of that was you're in South Bend. But we were also very sensitive to making sure that people didn't walk over there into the hall today and say it's all SEC and ACC, and that's not the case. In fact, we have a spreadsheet that tells you how many times each school is listed. So it's very balanced. So if someone walked in and says, well, there's more Michigan than Ohio State. No, there's not.
Well, but to be fair, Michigan and Ohio State have a lot of skins on the wall too.
Sure.
So, and so if that's the case, but if you work in that had to be an enormous task to try to even things up a little bit.
It is, because you're trying to break down what can you show. Technology helps a lot, but what can you physically show? We have a rivalry area, and we had to pick 8. I said, okay, we can pick 8, but we got to find more. So they created a glass wall next to it that features, and they could change it out, features another 16. But you had to make decisions like that.
How much of the 8 are no longer playing? Because A&M and Texas are about to start playing again. Nebraska, Oklahoma has been interrupted.
Yeah.
Are we talking Harvard, Yale, Navy, Army, Navy, that kind of thing?
Army, let me see if I get this right. Army, Navy, Harvard, Yale, Alabama, Auburn, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, OU, USC, Notre Dame, and Grambling Southern.
Okay, all right.
So we're fortunate in that, but that's we were looking ahead at that because Texas A&M had just ended.
Yep.
There's great rivalries all over the country. So that's really a core piece of why college football has grown as a sport is those rivalries. So we have to be really careful as a sport not to lose too many more of those. That's not good.
Realignment's doing that, isn't it?
It really separates. That's one of the things that separates the college game from the pro game. And just have to be really careful that we got to find a way to preserve them. I understand there's going to be change and realignment, but maybe in the future with scheduling being have to be a little bit more difficult than it's been for most schools. Maybe they bring some of those back.
Matthew Stein, National Football Foundation, with us on 365 Sports.
You played at Rice. You mentioned 3-1 against Baylor.
Yes.
I want to make sure that our Waco viewers know that one.
Yes.
3-1 against Baylor.
I tell JJ Joe all the time.
We love JJ.
He was my high school teammate.
Did he block your number? Did he just?
No, I had great games against Baylor.
But how much of the old Southwest people need to know about those old Southwest Conference rivalries, and what a great league it was.
Yes, it was. You still, in my travels, people lament not having it anymore. Mm-hmm. I think people understand now why it broke up the way it did, but people really miss it. And, there was great history, great tradition there. I know I went through a stretch, towards the end where schools were struggling against the national competition. That probably all played a part, but you're not gonna see that again. I mean, having eight schools in one conference and probably pretty much a drive, other than maybe going to Lubbock. It was a special point in time. I'm glad I got a chance to experience it and play it, and I think that the museum in Waco does a great job of displaying and making sure that stays a part of history.
But regionality is important to college football.
No question.
And I do think that's something that maybe the television networks have not taken into account in some of these expansion things where, like, hey, it's going to be great that, UCLA, is going to play against Wisconsin, but regionality is important. Like that's really where the bubbling up and the I don't like you, you don't like me comes from.
No question, and it's it's always been that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, that's one of the it's one of the reasons why this sport grew, especially in the South and in the Southwest, and we're all going to have to adjust to what the new reality is, but probably to your point. That's probably why, certain conferences, perception-wise, however you want to call it, have done a little bit better because they've maintained their footprint.
So how much, and I know Rice and Houston, but Houston is entering the Big 12, yes. And it means a lot to them. And they've kind of been out there like TCU was for a while. And of course, those who are now a part of the conference. How much do you think it means to the University of Houston? Because when I think of Houston, I don't think so much about John Jenkins and Pardee and all that, Klingler. I think about Bill Yeoman.
Yes.
I mean, maybe because of my age.
No. I think people forget how great and really good those Houston Cougar teams were, especially in the 70s and late 60s. They played everybody. They beat everybody. And I think it's a huge deal for them. And they, to their credit, they've put a lot of work in. It wasn't getting into the Big 12 wasn't overnight. And I think people forget it wasn't an overnight for TCU to get into the Big 12. Mm-hmm. They won 4 conferences before they got back to the Big 12. So it is important. Now, obviously there'll be an adjustment. For the 4 schools in general. That's just the way it is now. It's hard to make that adjustment, but they should be really proud. Their facilities are outstanding. They have wonderful leadership. You got to have that leadership from top down.
Right.
So their chairman of the board down to the president, AD, and coach. They're in good shape.
Yep, and again, the National Football Foundation, I'm a member. Paul, you're a member. The voting, that ballot is, I have to grind on that, but it's an honor to be a part of it.
Thank you.
It hurts sometimes to go, well, I guess I can't put this guy in right now.
Right.
I mean, there's some dudes now.
It's hard.
And then incoming the next year, there's new dudes, right?
There's always, it's, again, you'll always have people to put in the hall. And the one thing people have to understand and appreciate is just because they had this tremendous pro career, that does not play any part of the role in them being elected to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
What you did in college. Because, you were great in college. If you didn't make it in the NFL, first of all, there's no shame in that.
Nope.
So we're not going to judge you on that.
Well, the other
I
thing
can't
is,
tell you how much, because I'm a part of the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame, and too many times I fight this. Not me, but those, just because a kid, a young man, was a great NFL player or a college player, that does not need to enter the Texas High School Hall of Fame ballot.
Well, sometimes you don't get good until you're like, you could have been a good player in college but not great. Say you were a center and you were kind of good. You're a 4th-round draft pick, but you know, you get in the league and you hit your stride finally at 23, 24 years old. But in college, you were, you know,
good,
the 9th best player on your team. It doesn't mean you're a college football Hall of Famer just because you wind up being an all-pro center in the NFL.
Well, that's right. Well, I give you a good example that, you know, people ask us questions on. Tom Brady. Now, yeah, all-time great in the NFL. He was a 1-year starter at Michigan. He was a great player at Michigan, but he doesn't meet the criteria. He wasn't first-team All-American, and so he, you know, he will not be under consideration.
His story is legendary
guidelines
for a reason.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Matthew Sign, Chief Operating Officer of the National Football Foundation, 3-1. He wanted me to say that again
3-1
when he was at Rice against Baylor. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Great job, guys.
This is 365 Sports.